How's it going, YouTube? My name's Elbadinja7, your favorite WoW healing content creator and resident Mistweaver monk. And in today's video, I'm going to give you guys every tool in my arsenal for dealing with the bursting affix. Now, this is, you guys already know this, it is a nightmare of an affix, and oftentimes it is seen as just being a healer mechanic. But first and foremost, before we even get into the video, if any DPS players still watching, I want to say it is not a healer mechanic. Healers do play a role in this mechanic, but it is a 5-man content mythic plus affix, meaning the tank shouldn't necessarily go in and pull 30 mobs at a time if they can help it. Split it up into little 5-man packs, 6-man packs. The DPS, if you are sitting at 6 stacks and those are about to have their final tick before that debuff falls off, don't kill that 7th mob and apply and refresh all those stacks. Just wait a second. Hold your DPS, you'll live. Literally, you'll live and make your healer's life a lot easier. Now, most of my viewers, if not all of my viewers, are healers, so that is what we're going to be talking about today. And how I'm going to set up this video is I'm first going to give you guys some very general tips that should help you no matter what your main is, and then I'm also going to give you guys some more specialized tips for all 7 healing specs. Now, although I'm a Mistweaver main, I have put in hours on every single healer on bursting week and learned the ins and outs on how to make this affix a lot easier. And I'll also be bringing in some backup for one of the specs, so stay tuned for that. So jumping into our general advice, our general tips, and number 1 is do not be afraid to swap around talents just for bursting week. Because odds are, if you're watching this video, you are slightly struggling, or you know that there is a way that this affix can be handled better. And a lot of times there are some concessions that you can make in your talent builds, likely sacrificing some damaged talents in favor of some more hot-based talents, or some talents that line up against this affix a little better. The next tip is that a few healing classes on this list have been opting out of one of their major cooldowns, namely like Rdruids not taking Tranquility into some keys, as well as Hpriest opting not to take Divine Hymn into keys. And if you're struggling with this affix and playing one of those specs, then odds are you can sacrifice once again one of those damage talents, or one talent that's not giving you a ton of value between pools, in favor of having one more tool on your belt, at least for this week, and at least while you're learning the rest of these tips. Also, one big misconception about bursting or about an affix is that you don't want to waste a cooldown on them. That is not the case for bursting. Oftentimes, it's even encouraged, but it's 100% acceptable to use one of your healing cooldowns on bursting, preferably one of your minor cooldowns, but it's also just totally fine to have a cooldown to finish off a pack and roll over into those bursting stacks. Next up, do not underestimate single target dispels. They lighten the healing required by up to 20% and can turn a 7-stack burst into a 3-stack burst, which is so much more manageable on one person. Building off of that, trying to dissect bursting from being a 5-man AoE dot into a 3 to 4-man can trivialize some otherwise very difficult situations. So using something like a defensive plus externaling the tank can make only 3 people be at risk. Or if you're a Mistweaver, expel harming yourself to cover yourself while life cocooning one of your DPS, once again, can also only make you have 3 targets to heal. So things like that and seeing options like that can really help your understanding of this mechanic. And you can even take this a step further when combining it with the previous tip, so dispelling 1 DPS, defensive yourself, and externaling a 3rd player. All of a sudden, now you just have to spot heal 2 people, making this so much more manageable in certain situations. And if you're the one forming the group, sacrificing a major DPS slot like a Demon Hunter in order to bring a Shadow Priest can make some of your smaller, like your plus 20, plus 16 keys just trivial this week, because they bring along Mass Dispel. Now, they won't have it up for every single pool, but it will help out most pools, if not every other pool. Just make sure to ask your group as enemies are dying to kind of move into melee. That way they're all hit by that ground AoE. And then finally, you can even make a couple of minor gear shifts. So for example, one thing that I did on my stream that really surprised me and really helped out on bursting week is I swapped one of my trinkets. I think it was my Pips trinket in order to bring Blossom of Amirdrasil, since as you know, this trinket does have a proc that applies a hot and can do a rolling hot that does a lot of healing. In fact, this did 7% of my overall healing in a key, and often, like a couple different times, I noticed its healing help out during bursting. So making small swaps like that that don't affect your overall healing too much and don't affect your overall effectiveness, but can really help you in that moment, in that week, are often really good changes to make. All right, as we jump into the specific classes, I'm going to be using Boulder Fist, his slaps, to kind of act as a dot or a tick of the dot. I know it's a lot slower. It's not a perfect representation, but hopefully it works for you guys. Now I'm gonna start off with the 2 priest specs because yes, you do have mass dispel once every 2 minutes, which can a lot of times let you do some bigger pools and make this just a better choice for a healer on these weeks. But you don't always have mass dispel. You will have to compete with those bursting stacks and healing. But starting off with Holy Priest, some of these tips start during the pool. And number one thing that I found like really helped not just me become a better Holy Priest player, but really helped verse bursting is to make sure to stay on top of your prayers of mending. Having this hot rolling on as many people coming into those bursting stacks can really combat those dot ticks. Hots are a great way to combat bursting, and this is one of your stronger ones. On that same note, Sanctify is not the greatest AoE heal, but it's actually pretty good at dealing with the first 2 or 3 or just 1 ticks from all those bursting stacks. So if you let that first tick happen, making sure to save one of those Sanctify charges during the pool, you can Sanctify everyone that's in melee. It'll combat with 1 or 2 stacks or a few stacks ticking, but more importantly is it will apply renew because of your tier set, just adding another hot to everyone and making the rest of the healing a little bit easier. Now, what's the number 1 tip that I've learned in all of my practicing of playing Holy Priest during bursting week? It might sound simple, it might sound a little too simple, but with the build that we're currently running, having Trail of Light along with our mastery being basically a hot itself, was to flash heal different people each time. So a lot of times what I did with bursting is I would Sanctify to do an AoE heal on everyone that's in melee, applying renew. I would also have prayers of mending ticking on them, and then you kind of just start to flash heal to compete with the rest of the ticks, keeping everyone from dying, and then you can just top everyone up as you run to the next pool. But what that would look like is a lot of times I would be spamming into the lowest person, casting on them twice, getting not that much efficiency doing it that way. But what was better, what worked out a lot better for me, was flash healing 1 person at a time. So I would flash heal DPS number 1, flash heal the tank, flash heal myself, flash heal DPS number 2, and then flash heal DPS number 3. That way, not only are you applying your mastery hot to all of those people, spreading that mastery hot to 5 different people instead of just spot healing 2 or 3 people back to back, but Trail of Light does a surprising amount of healing with all that flash heal that you're going to be casting. And once I learned to do this, I'll be completely honest, I could handle a ton of stacks of bursting pretty easily. Once again, as long as I was prepped with all of my hots, this really helped. But if you're still someone who finds yourself struggling and you are a Holy Priest player, what you can do is you can find some talents on your talent tree to sacrifice, at least at first. I would recommend like these 2 damaging talents. These are exceptional damage options, and in fact, Burning Vehemence is like insane for damage. However, if you're really struggling, you might want to sacrifice these damage options in favor of taking just 1 more tool on your tool belt, Divine Hymn, or just something simple like Pontifex. So after you cast a couple flash heals and spam those around, getting those Trail of Lights and getting those masteries on those guys, then doing another Sanctify on everyone that's going to be boosted. It's just different ways to add more healing during bursting rotation. But honestly, having just 1 cooldown and 1 unreliable cooldown and answered prayers giving you apotheosis, you don't often have a cooldown ready for bursting windows. So doing things like this, making small concessions in your talent tree, can really help. Now, moving on to Disc Priest, I'll admit it, I struggled a lot more on Disc Priest than I did on Holy Priest just because of the core mechanic of you needing enemies alive to kind of get effective healing off of. Now, with that being said, there were some ways that I was able to manage, and after a couple of Mythic Plus runs, I was able to kind of get it down, but it did take a lot of practice. Now, number one is utilizing your Shadow Word Death effectively, and you get 2 charges of this. So this is kind of like your execute. It does a ton of damage to low health targets. And I was basically utilizing this spell one of 2 different ways, but I was making sure to use this every single pack. I would look forward to it since it's going to matter the most. It matters right once things are dying. That's when you're going to need the healing. That's when Shadow Word Death comes into play. So number one, the number one use that I would do is on the priority target. So if there's a pack of 5 enemies and you know that this one is going to stay alive the longest, you know it has the most health, it's gonna these 4 are gonna die, this guy's gonna be chilling sitting here for a lot longer, then what I would do is I would use Shadow Word Death on this guy. I would basically, these 4 guys would die, and then I would use that final bit of his health to get big burst healing with Shadow Word Death to compete with these 4 stacks of bursting. But another less obvious way is, say that we're pulling 5 mobs and say they all have pretty even health, but you notice that 2 are starting to die quicker than the rest of them, or maybe 3 are, then what you can do is you can really split that pack of 5 in half. So you can use Shadow Word Death, your biggest damage execute button, as well as your smite spam, all of your single target onto those 2 quicker dying enemies to make sure that they die about 5 seconds at least before the rest of the mobs. That way, what you're accomplishing is you're basically going to have 2 stacks of bursting because those 2 guys die really quick, and then those 2 stacks of bursting are going to fall off, and then the other 3 are going to die, and then you'll just have to compete with a 2 stack and a 3 stack instead of a 5 stack. So you can use your single target damage, your high damage as a healer, as well as your Shadow Word Death to really control when things die, which is just valuable with an affix like bursting. But in a lot of cases, almost most cases, you can't really reliably control when things die. So you have to do other things like saving your penance. Now, this is part of your core rotation and one of your better spells. Honestly, one of your better healing spells. However, if you can manage without pressing this, like say things are falling to about 20% health, then if you can save it for about 2 or 3 seconds, the longer you delay pressing this button, the better it can be. Because as you see here, I'm gonna, well, let me apply some power word shields to these guys. Let me just give them atonement. As you see here, I'm gonna penance one of these guys. If I penance this guy, it's very steady, basically like a very powerful hot. Your atonement plus penance is like a very powerful hot. So if you can delay your penance and use it as things are dying to compete with at least those first few stacks, you can really trivialize it because of just how that damage and healing lines up with the bursting damage. So you're probably noticing a pattern if you're not skipping through the video that you do have to kind of make some concessions, but once you learn those and how to play around those, it's really not that bad. You don't lose out on a ton of overall healing or damage, and you just fly through dungeons because of how easy this affix can be. And then using a stack of radiance, or hell, even 2 if it's a crazy high bursting amount and you don't have Mass Dispel, but using a power word radiance to get that big burst heal because it heals for a ton. I mean, you guys, all you Disc Priest players, I don't know why I'm telling you guys, you know it does a ton of healing. Using this to compete after all the ads are dead, after you don't have anything to do damage off of, is an excellent way to do some AoE healing, and it's not bad. Once again, using cooldowns is often frowned upon just to deal with bursting, but it shouldn't be. It's actually just a great way and encouraged to use your cooldowns, including one of your charges of Radiance, to deal with a big bursting stack. And on that same note, Ultimate Penitence, I know some people prefer not to take this in a Mythic Plus dungeon because they don't think they need it, basically. But this is such an excellent cooldown to pair up against big bursting stacks. So right once about a couple of the mobs start to fall to about 10% health, just single target dispel someone if they already have some stacks, and then refresh all of your atonements with one of your radiances, and then go up into ultimate penitence and thank me later. This can deal with so many stacks. It's kind of crazy. It does so much healing to your party, especially if in one of those scenarios the pack is dying in two groups. So this pack dies, they burst a bunch of stacks onto your group, and you still have these enemies to cleave off of. Ultimate penitence is one of the best cooldowns to deal with those situations. Now, moving on to my OG healing class, Rdruid, and as you know, most Druids have swapped to cat weaving. But if you're, once again, if you're watching this video, you're struggling, or you're most likely struggling with bursting. Now, I'm not saying don't play cat weaving, because it is just an exceptional healing option right now. However, a lot of times you're sacrificing time in your druid stance in order to be in cat stance for more time. More cat form optimization is just better in most cases. However, on bursting weeks, what I found was my biggest flaw was that I was spending a little too much time in cat form. Now, I'm not saying don't start each pool just like you normally would. You still want to do that. However, once things fall to about 40% health, a lot of times on other weeks, I would refresh all my dots one more time if they're about to fall off. But on this week, I found it so much more effective once things reach that 40% threshold, once enemies are close to dying or threatening that they're going to die soon. I found it so much more optimal to play safe, and instead of refreshing those dots, refresh those hots. Once again, healing damage does matter, but keeping the party alive and able to move fluidly between packs matters so much more. So coming back into Druid stance earlier is honestly my #1 tip. It sounds stupid, but trust me, it is the best and most easy way that you can trivialize this bursting affix. Let's go and get into the playstyle tips. And actually, I found that once I learned how to utilize some of your talents a little better, it became so much easier for me. So #1, obviously, you're going to swap into Druid stance before things die, hopefully, and apply some hots. Now, what hots should you prioritize? You want to prioritize not using Wild Growth. Trust me, that will come into play. Hopefully, if you have any clear casting regrowths, you can use those during those bursting ticks. That way you get those spot heals in AoE and get very solid value from those. But what you want to do, #1, is you want to make sure that your efflorescence will last for the entire burst. So you want to apply it, make sure that that duration is long, since it's a very, it's a quick global cooldown that does solid AoE healing later on. And then, as you know, you get 2 life blooms if you're taking Undergrowth, which most people are playing Undergrowth right now. But this optimization is that you actually want to make sure that you put one of those on yourself, because it will make all of your hots tick 20% faster. And if things are about to start bursting, you want those hots rolling. You want them pumping into their health bars. So all the hots that you're able to get out will just steamroll bursting and make it a lot easier. I started off not using this trick. I was trying to life bloom to other people, and it made it so much harder. Trust me on this. This is such an easy tip, such an easy minor optimization that makes it so much easier. And then next up is using Soul of the Forest. So right as that first tick of bursting comes out is right once you want your Wild Growth cast to go off, because as you know, Wild Growth starts out stronger and it tapers off over time. But what you can do is you can swift mend someone, just someone in your group, as things start dying, to burst heal them up to full if they've taken damage, and then it will empower your AoE heal, your Wild Growth, and make that hot tick 50% harder. And then from there, you can backfill a lot of the healing after doing those few things, taking those few precautionary steps by just pressing a single stack of Grove Guardians. These guys do a ton of healing, and especially when paired well with a couple of your hots rolling on your allies. But if you have no stacks of Grove Guardians, you have no charges of Grove Guardians, you use them all during your pool, don't fret. It's not the end of the world. Flourish is an excellent cooldown to deal with this affix. Just as photosynthesis will make your periodic effects heal more and be more effective, Flourish really accomplishes the same thing. And I know it sucks wasting one of your only cooldowns against this mechanic, but trust me, it really helps. Also, Convoke fills that same void. It's a 1 minute cooldown. They're very low cost since they're only 1 minute, so don't be afraid to use these cooldowns versus mechanic. I would even spread a couple of rejuves and find that although it's a very weak hot, the mastery helping your other more powerful hots, just it adds up. Every little hot adds up and makes it safer. And since you're already spending that more time in Druid form, every extra rejuve that you can get off really helps. And then finally, after all of those steps, once you've, done all those precautionary measures and used a cooldown if you need it, then you can finally fill the rest of the healing that needs to be done with a couple of regrowth spams. But this is a trap that a lot of people fall in, is they would start just panicking and regrowth spamming. But no, it starts with Resto Druid. It starts before the bursting stacks actually come out. But hopefully those few little steps, like saving your wild growth for right once those bursting stacks hit, refreshing your efflorescence right before they hit as well, swift mending before your wild growth, and then finally life blooming yourself and applying all of your hots earlier. Hopefully all of those are enough so that you don't have to waste too many cooldowns or panic too much with regrowths. All right, now next up is Resto Shaman. And guys, I would truly do you guys a disservice if I even tried to talk about Shaman, because this is my least played healing spec this tier. However, this is where I'm going to bring in some backup. So Shamrocked is one of our new guildies who's actually ranked #2 on the World Resto Shaman leaderboards. This guy is cracked at the game, and specifically Mythic Plus, and I dare you to look up his raid DPS parses. But thank you so much, Shamrocked, for helping me out with this video. I'll go ahead and let you take it away, though.
Hey everyone, Shamrocked here, and thanks LB Ninja. I'm super stoked to be repping the Resto Shaman tips for this guy. Resto Shamans have a pretty decent toolkit for handling bursting, but it does take a little bit of planning and foresight to really get the hang of it. Thankfully, we have a few tricks up our sleeve for when bursting catches you off guard, but ideally, you will see the bursting coming as groups of mobs start to die and can use your abilities accordingly. Your two best friends for any bursting situation where you are able to plan ahead are your Dispel and your Cloudburst Totem. If I know that we are going to be rolling stacks of bursting up to 6, 7, 8, 9, etc., I will put down my Cloudburst Totem a good 5 seconds or so before mobs start dying, and then spam some healing into the group. Chain Heal and Primordial Wave Cleaves are probably your best bet at filling your Cloudburst fast, and keep in mind that all overhealing will still fuel your totem, so you should be doing this even if the group is at full health. Then, as the group actually starts taking bursting damage and the stacks start rolling, continue to pump the heals until you feel you cannot keep up, at which point you can pop a nice juicy Cloudburst that will hopefully top the group up, or at least give everyone a boost of health that will allow you to catch up with your regular healing. If it is really spicy, Ancestral Guidance is an amazing cooldown to use in this situation, as it channels an insane amount of healing into your Cloudburst Totem while simultaneously healing your group. For standard dispels, if the stacks are going to be rolling up slowly, then make sure you dispel somewhat early as the stacks begin, and then again once it comes off cooldown and the stacks are higher. This will ensure that at least one person in the group has lower stacks than the rest, and will ease the burden ever so slightly and allow you to keep up. In situations where bursting catches you off guard, or you are in a dungeon like Everbloom and find yourself going from 0 to 12 bursting stacks during larger pulls, we have one of the best abilities in the game at handling this in our Spirit Link Totem ability. Keep this one in your back pocket, and don't be shy about using it once damage becomes too high to keep up or if you are in danger of someone dying. Note that you can use Astral Shift during your Spirit Link window, and it will allow you to act as a health battery to your group. Anyone you can dispel in your Spirit Link as well will also contribute to the group defensive. And finally, Ascendance is another amazing AoE ability that will allow you to pump out death-defying amounts of heals to your group during scary bursting windows. Pairing Ascendance with Spirit Link Totem is the ultimate Hail Mary and can keep groups alive even with ungodly amounts of bursting stacks. Thanks again, LB Ninja. I hope these tips helped. And this goes for any class. Remember to stay calm and always be mindful of what cooldowns you have up your sleeve going into any bursting window. Having a plan is crucial to staying ahead of the damage.
Now, on to my main Mistweaver. Now, you guys have really been requesting this video specifically for Mistweaver, so I might spend a little bit more time on this, but my #1 thing that I noticed when playing Mistweaver is, once again, I've said it before, do not be afraid to use a cooldown right before a pack dies or after the pack dies for bursting, because we have excellent cooldowns to deal with bursting, and they're very short cooldown. If you're running Shayloon's Gift and Veil of Pride, it's a 40-second recharge. Chi is a 1-minute cooldown if talented correctly, and Revival allows you to, it's a mass dispel. It does cleanse bursting. Make sure you have Revival, not Restoral this week, especially because this is the AoE dispel. This is so good because not only does it AoE dispel, but it also does a chunk heal on an instant cast. So you can let one tick happen of like 7 or 8 stacks. Everyone's going to fall pretty low, but then you're going to have to revival really quickly. So this allows you to do a very big pool once every 3 minutes. Now you can swap to uplifted spirits to try to reset that cooldown a little bit quicker this week. I think that value is pretty good. However, I'm still a sucker for the survivability of every little option that we have at the moment. But let's talk about what if you don't have your cooldowns. Now, one of our best ways to do AoE healing is Awakened Feline. However, bursting happens after things die in most scenarios. So if we just spinning Crankick, oh, wrong pack. If we just spinning Crankick, we're going to do a lot of AoE healing, but we won't have as many targets as things start to die. Or this loses a lot of efficiency versus bursting. And also, it is the counterpart to the rotation that you could do that really sets you up to deal with bursting nicely. So as you know, if we Soothing Mist a target and start spamming Vivifies, these Vivifies hit, depending on your haste, it hits roughly about the same speed that bursting ticks tick. So if we can do this on all 5 party members, we can get a really chunky heal about every tick and just compete with that healing. You'll basically just ping pong back and forth between full health and however much damage your bursting stacks do. Now, how do you do that? Well, we actually have such an easy way to do it. And all it requires is for us to have either 1 or 2 stacks of Renewing Mist. I'll show you both little quick variants. It requires us to have Rising Sun Kick as things are about to die. So all this is right as things are about to die, but before they die, obviously, you need a target to Rising Sun Kick. So you need Rising Sun Kick, 1 or both of your Renewing Mist charges, and simply just Thunder Focus Tea. I guess the second charge of Renewing Mist and the Thunder Focus Tea are pretty interchangeable, but let me go ahead and show you what I mean. So as you know, we have Invigorating Mist, which makes our Vivifies cleave off of everyone that has a Renewing Mist on them. And then also our Enveloping Mist and our Rising Sun Kicks spawn a Renewing Mist on an ally. So if we can summon, or if we can spawn a Renewing Mist on every ally, all 5 people, which we can extremely easily, then we can cleave those Vivifies, we can roll those Vivifies on everyone in the party. So what do I do as enemies are starting to die? Well, 1, if I am doing my spinning crane kick spam, I swap from that to start doing my single target rotation, because if you're doing your single target rotation, you'll get more Rising Sun Kick resets, which will then give you more free Renewing Mist once the pack is about to die. But this simple thing that I do is Renewing Mist 1 target, I Renewing Mist a 2nd target, I Thunder Focus Tea my Rising Sun Kick to Rising Sun Kick, and then Rising Sun Kick again, and then boom, I have 4 Renewing Mists out. And then, so 4 people are covered with a Renewing Mist. I pick the 5th target that does not have a Renewing Mist, and I spam Soothing Mist on them, spam those Vivifies. So once again, you're gonna Renewing Mist 1 person, Renewing Mist a 2nd person, so like 2 of the DPS. You're gonna Thunder Focus Tea, Rising Sun Kick, and then Rising Sun Kick again, and those 2 will apply 2 other Renewing Mist to 2 of your allies, so 4 people have it, and then you spam Vivifies into the 5th person. I promise you, it does so much healing and really makes it to where you don't even have to use a cooldown versus bursting. Now, once again, what do you do if you don't have, say, your 2nd stack or your Thunder Focus Tea? Well, actually, it's once again, it's really simple. So if, say, you just have 1 stack of Renewing Mist, how do you get a Renewing Mist on all 5 people? Well, you use that 1 stack of Renewing Mist, you Thunder Focus Tea, Rising Sun Kick once again. My 2 button on my mouse is not working. You Rising Sun Kick, you do it once again, so that's 3. You did your 1 Renewing Mist, your Rising Sun Kick applied a 2nd one, your 2nd Rising Sun Kick applied a 3rd one, and then once you pick that 4th person to channel your Soothing Mist on, so let's say that this is the guy that does not have a Renewing Mist on him, you'll channel your Soothing Mist, and all you do is you just start it with an Enveloping Mist. 1, this is already really good to do because it's going to be another hot ticking into them, but that Enveloping Mist, just like your Rising Mist, will spawn a Renewing Mist on an ally. So that is four, once again, four Renewing Mist that you get very simply. So once again, one Renewing Mist, Thunder Focus Tea, Rising Sun Kick, and then, I mean, you can do it in different order to make it more optimal. Rising Sun Kick, again, that's 3 Renewing Mists. You're going to pick a 4th target, Channel Soothing Mist, Enveloping Mist to spawn a 4th Renewing Mist, and then spam Vivifies, and you're going to cleave onto 5 people. So I guess I could do that pretty fast. So let me do it pretty fast. So I'm going to Renewing Mist, Rising Sun Kick, Renewing Mist myself, and then pick just a dummy to channel into, and I think I'm picking an enemy dummy, but you guys hopefully get it. You can use these two talents, Rapid Diffusion and Invigorating Mist, to really compete with like up to 7 stacks. I've done it up to 8 or 9 stacks before. It is insane. But if you're still having trouble verse bursting after learning that quick little simple bursty rotation that you can do to spread Renewing Mist, what you can do, I've tried it and I did enjoy it, is you can take a note from or a page out of our raid book, I guess, and swap to Tear of Mourning. Now, you'll really only get insane value if you can get really quick, rapid Enveloping Mist to get bursty healing from Tear of Mourning. So how it works is all of your Enveloping Mist will be funneling also into all of your Renewing Mist. So if you can manage to do that, you can get really solid healing. And what I like to do when I swap to this, so if I push higher keys, I'll stick with my Rising Mist build because I'm comfortable with it. But if I do want to make bursting seem a little bit easier, but the rest of the keys seem a little bit less optimal, I'll swap to Tear of Mourning, but I'll also get rid of this one talent point that I have in Secret Infusion and put it into Focus Thunder. Now, what do these talents do for us? Well, you can actually do some very bursty, hot-based healing, which once again, hot healing lines up very well versus bursting. And all it is you just Renewing Mist. If you have both your charges, you Renewing Mist 2 allies, and then you pop your Thunder Focus Tea and you Enveloping Mist 2 allies. And then those Enveloping Mists are also going to be cleaving onto everyone a little bit with Tear of Mourning, but they're also doing a ton of healing. They're instant cast because you Thunder Focus Tea both of them, and you can do 2 because of Focus Thunder. And once again, you are taking a concession in your overall talent build, but if you need to do this, or if you just want to, because honestly, let's be real, Tear of Mourning and Focus Thunder is a sick combo, then you absolutely have this tool in your belt, or at least now you do. Now, I'm not really going to talk about how to use Revival, I've already done that, or Chi-Ji to deal with bursting stacks, because you want to use your Chi-Ji as things are about to die, about 50% health to start rolling those hots. But what I will talk about is Shayloons. You don't want to be too risky with Shayloons, but you also don't want to use it on the first tick of small stacks of bursting. You want to let everyone get down a little bit lower. I think I have a couple hots on myself, or maybe I'm just too geared, and I guess Yu'lon's Grace is putting in work right now. But you want like 1 or 2 stacks to tick before that cast goes off. So normally as those stacks hit, you start your cast, and then that Shayloons actually has missing health to heal. I've seen some VODs that you guys have sent me where you are struggling with bursting, and most of it is because one, either you're waiting too long for Shayloons to heal and like 1 or 2 people die, or 2, you're doing it too early and you only really get a little bit of that Shayloons value from its healing. It does a ton of healing. You guys know this. It can fully top up like a 20% health bar very easily, especially if it's a DPS. So make sure that you're utilizing it like that. Make sure you're getting the most value out of your Shayloons cast. All right, next up is our penultimate healer, Preservation Evoker. Now, I'll be honest, Preservation Evoker has, in my experience, a very easy time dealing with bursting. Especially with this new tier set, it's really easy to have a high hot count, just a ton of hots rolling on each person, big AoE hot healing, pretty instantly too. So I will just show you basically what I did on every single pool to trivialize up to like 7, 8, 9 stacks of bursting very easily without having to commit one of your major cooldowns like Rewind or Stasis on that pack. And it's literally just utilizing your talents effectively. So you're going to be utilizing Call of Ysera, you're going to basically be utilizing Grace Period, and now that Temporal Anomaly and Resonating Sphere is buffed to hit 5 allies again, it really helps with bursting. And honestly, all that it takes, the only commitment that it takes is Temporal Anomaly, having Dream Breath ready to go, and only 1 charge of Reversion, and you can do so much AoE healing basically in an instant. Basically, it'll compete with bursting very well. So all you're gonna do is start it off as things are dying or right before things are dying. You're gonna want to Verdant Embrace whoever needs it, or if no one needs it, Verdant Embrace yourself, but use that so that you give yourself the Call of Ysera buff. Now what you're going to do is you're going to Temporal Anomaly to shoot echoes through your allies, and then those echoes are going to be duplicating your Dream Breath, basically one of your strongest hots, if not your strongest hot. So you're going to Dream Breath. All of those Dream Breaths are going to do a ton of hot ticks, but also all those echoes are going to pop on little Dream Breaths and apply a ton of rolling hots. But you're going to capitalize on that. Since your tier set will apply smaller echoes to some of these guys, you're going to then press Reversion. So what does Reversion do? Well, one, it's just another hot to be ticking on as many people as you can, but also those golden hour procs are going to help top up someone if they really have taken a couple more ticks, or they came into those ticks with slightly lower health percentage. That will help as well, but also having Grace Period buffing them, buffing their healing received by both of your Dream Breaths ticking on them, really will make a huge difference. And notice that none of these spells use any of your essences. So you still have all, or however many you can use these during the pack basically, and or you can not use them and have them ready to go at the end of this quick little cycle of abilities. And that way, if you need to, you can finish it off with maybe like 2 echo applications and then your second charge of Reversion. That will also do some pretty solid healing. Or after all of that, if you still need a little bit more AoE healing, you can just put down an Emerald Blossom if you have 3 essences, since once again, these spells do not use them. So once again, let me show you really quick what it looks like. So you're going to Verdant Embrace, Temporal Anomaly, Dream Breath, and then Reversion. And it's that simple. Look at just all these hot ticks. They're boosted because people will have Reversion on them. And it just does so much AoE healing, AoE hot healing, that honestly bursting is it felt like a joke on this class. Coming from the other specs, it just felt like Evoker just had a couple more tools than most of the other healer specs. But as always, Stasis is an excellent cooldown and actually pretty good if you can manage to, or if you need to use it for bursting. So you can use all of your powerful spells during the pool. So you can press Stasis, do something like Temporal Anomaly, Dream Breath, Spirit Bloom, and then save those stored up. And then once bursting hits, use those 3 again. That's another great spell for this. Rewind is also just a major cooldown that is excellent versus this affix. Honestly, you should not be struggling with Evoker. You have all the tools. Just learn how to press your buttons in the right order and at the right times. It sounds simple, but hopefully this little demonstration helps. So once again, Verdant Embrace, you're going to Temporal Anomaly, Dream Breath as that damage starts coming out, and then Reversion, and all those free echoes will copy the Reversion. All the free echoes will copy the Dream Breath. You'll just have a ton of hots rolling. It should be enough. Now, finally, we're going to talk about Holy Paladin, and I honestly believe that Holy Paladin has a ton of tools for this. Now, one, you have a lot of damage control, so things like Aura Mastery, Blessing of Sacrifice, you can really control who's taking damage and who's taking how much damage. But also your cooldowns are surprisingly good versus bursting. So Daybreak, as you know, it's now a 45-second cooldown with your tier set, and when you press it, you get haste from your tier set. So don't be afraid to use Daybreak right once those first few ticks start hitting. That way you'll top everyone up, hopefully it does enough, and be able to use the haste to start machine gun casting to finish topping everyone up. Also, Divine Toll Holy Shocking everyone can do a surprising amount of healing, so don't be afraid to use this cooldown, which once again, it's super low cooldown, 45 seconds. Don't be afraid to use this to top up everyone during bursting stacks. But one thing that I found very helpful is I would actually kind of try to pool together some of my Holy Shock charges. So once things were about 30% health, I would apply or spread around Holy Shocks just to have the hots rolling from your tier set and from your glimmers on people. But then I would chill, I would stop. And I would save these because I would Daybreak the bursting damage, and then after Daybreak does its thing, then I would start spreading those Holy Shocks again. Once again, shock healing, whatever ticks would do damage, and spreading those hots again that Daybreak just snapped. Also, something like Tears Deliverance was really helping me do some big AoE hot healing because it does a surprising amount of healing, and it lasts a long time. You can press this during a pull or as a pull is about to die when you're under no threat, and it will persist through the bursting stacks. But the number one concession that I found really helped me, like I'm not even kidding, this helped probably the most, was I swapped to Beacon of Virtue for this week. I don't know why I did it. I just thought to do it because look, I played when Beacon of Virtue was meta, and then recently one of my Twitch viewers told me to swap to Beacon of Faith, go double Beacon, and it has felt very good. It's felt better. But on weeks where you need to do 5-man AoE healing, Beacon of Virtue felt honestly incredible. It is a little weaker. It will make your overall healing a little worse. However, if you're struggling with bursting, something like Beacon of Virtue, a little quick swap to something like Beacon of Virtue is invaluable, and I promise you, you will not regret it this week. Especially when you pair it with one of your other cooldowns like Daybreak and then spamming those Holy Shocks. I mean, it just does insane AoE healing and laughs at bursting. But guys, that is going to do it for all of my advice to you guys for dealing with bursting. I know it's a very daunting affix, and when I first started playing, I thought it was impossible. I literally could not survive 4 stacks. I thought, how are these YouTubers doing it? I have no idea. But with practice, with understanding of how the manic can be managed in different ways, you have to think outside the box. What do I have available at the end of this pool versus this pool versus this pool? It's never the same. So you really have to understand your kit and understand your tools, bring the right tools to the job, bring as many tools as you can, because once again, you're going to need different tools after each pool. I promise you guys, you can do it. And if you implement a couple of these tips, or maybe just you didn't think to use certain spells in different ways during bursting, hopefully this video helps you guys, because that is my number one goal. But thank you so much for watching. And I'm sure you can imagine this video took a lot of time to compile and to try to get one of my friends to help me out. So if you wouldn't mind, make sure and hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed to the channel for more advice like this. And let me know what else you guys are struggling with. Are there other affixes that you find impossible and want a video like this, deep diving into that affix? Let me know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, consider checking out the Patreon. I cannot stress enough how much it is literally the reason why I'm still able to do this today. Thank you so much to my Patreons. You are the hard carries of this channel. I swear you are the mass dispel to my 12 bursting stacks. Thank you so much to my Patreons. Once again, that link is down in the description below. Guys, I will see you in the next video. My name's Ninja7. Until then, take care.